So we're in Sony Vegas today, and we're going to be using elements from motiongraphicstock.com to do a sequence as part of an explainer video. The script I have for this explainer video at one point talks about how all doctors seem to be the same at first glance. So I want to populate the screen with the same doctor icon. You usually see something like this coming out of After Effects, but actually Sony Vegas is pretty easy to use to accomplish the same effect. So let's get started. To start, we're going to go to motiongraphicstock.com, and we're already signed in. And since we're going to do something medical, let's search for medical. And we're going to use doctor, and we're going to download the movie file of this. Okay, so now we're in Vegas. We're in Vegas 13, but if you're in Vegas 10, 11, 12, it shouldn't be an issue. There's a couple of functionality things that are different from Vegas 10 to a Vegas 11 through 13, but it's nothing that is going to affect what we're doing here. And just so you know, I am working in a single monitor right now. I normally work on a dual monitor, which is why I've got a smaller preview window here, and in my other monitor is my media generators, video effects, Explorer, audio levels, trimmer, that kind of thing. So, but we're not going to miss any of that really for the most part in this demonstration. So let's bring in our doctor icon. And as you can see, our doctor is surrounded by green, which we can get rid of very easily by right-clicking on the clip, choosing Properties, and go to the Media tab, and the Alpha Channel drop-down, choose Straight, Unmatted, hit OK, and it's gone. And now our doctor is surrounded by black. And our doctor is actually not surrounded by black. Our doctor, as you can see over here, is in a transparent background. So what I like to do in these situations is work with some sort of a color background other than black. I prefer white, so I'm dragging my solid color white backdrop here, and now our doctor is in white. Now the key to this is that we're going to have 10 doctors on our screen, so what we want to do is, to make it uniform, we want to do the same thing to each of the 10 doctors. Now you can either duplicate this track right now and have to do everything the same to all 10 tracks, or we can do what I'm going to show you how to do is to do everything that you need to do to one of them and then duplicate that so that they're all uniform. So the first thing we're going to do is decide whether we like this color. And if we don't like this color, we can go into our Event Effects tab and go to HSL Adjust. And we can add to the hue, and we can change the color. And we can change the color like this, or we can also, if we wanted to do black and white, we could change the saturation, drop the saturation down to 0. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do. I'm going to double click the saturation here to bring it back to color, and I'm actually not going to change the color. I'm going to take it back down to 0 because I actually like this particular color. The other decision we need to make is, how is this element going to come in? This flat icon from Motion Graphic Stock has an animation at the beginning. And if you decided you didn't want the animation at the beginning, or you didn't like it, or wasn't working for you, but you wanted to do something else, you can always get rid of the animation by simply grabbing the beginning of the clip and dragging it until the animation's done. And you can see it in the preview. And now the animation's done, so now if we go to the beginning of the clip that we've modified, there's no animation at the beginning. Okay? So we can pull that back to the beginning. And now if we wanted to do something like bring it in with a little bit of a pop, we could do that, and we do that with pan crop. And you can see we have one keyframe here, which is the icon as is, and then we can go further down the timeline, add another keyframe, and that's going to be the same position. And then we can go in between the two and we can alter it. And we can make it pushed in so that it bounces into the frame. Okay? And so now we're playing that. And maybe that's not quite fast enough. So we can go in and zoom into this keyframe timeline a little bit and just shorten the distance between the keyframes. Okay. And now we can go back and take a look at that. There, that's a little bit more of a pop, but that's gonna come in completely visible. So why don't we put a little bit of a fade in here? Maybe like a 4-frame fade in, just to ease it up a little bit. And there we go. So that would work. And you could do that even with a static icon. But this is not a static icon. It is an animated icon, and I actually happen to like the animation on it. So I'm going to bring back to the beginning of this clip and go in and remove those keyframes that we put in. And now we have the original animation. Okay, so the next thing we need to decide is the size. So I want to populate this entire space with 10 of these, and obviously this is too big. So again, the easiest thing to do is to go in to pan crop and pull out to make it smaller. And you don't see it here because we're fading in, so, and that seems to be a good size. So now that's going to be smaller, maybe a little bit smaller, because we are going to be put 10 in here. Okay. All right. So now we have the size right. So we've got the beginning, and we've got the size right. And again, we're just prepping the actual icon itself. Once we're done prepping it, then we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to move the different instances of it around the screen. All right. So now the last thing we need to do is just in case we need it for more than 10 seconds, because this clip is 10 seconds long, we want to extend it a little bit. So let's look at the end of this clip. And there is an animation at the end of it. So what we want to do is we want to do what we did at the beginning, is we want to grab the end of this clip and drag it until the animation is done. And at that point it is done. And just to confirm, okay, it's done. So now what we want to do is we want to click at the end of the clip. We'll zoom in a little bit here. And backspace, which will give us one single frame. And we're going to hit the S key to split it. And we are going to right click on that single frame and drop down to create subclip. And now we can drag this to go on for as long as we need it to. And in this case, we're just going to do it for 20 seconds. Okay, so now we have our animation at the beginning, we have a static clip, and then it continues on into here where we created the subclip of that single frame. But we're going to want to move these eventually, so the best thing to do here is to click on the front clip and then control click on the second clip and press G on the keyboard, which will group them, and now regardless of which clip we grab, we can move both of them, and that's it. So now it's time to actually duplicate these tracks, these events. So we're going to make 10 of this, and then once we've made 10, we're going to move them around to different parts of the screen. So to duplicate, we just right click and duplicate track, and we're going to do that 9 times. And once we're at 5, we can actually select a track, shift click, and we can now right click all 5 of these duplicate the tracks, and boom, it doubles it. So we don't have to do it as many times manually. All right. So now that we're here, we've got all of these. We've got all of these, but right now they're all occupying the same space. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to move them around, and how we're going to move them around is with track motion. So we'll start at the top here, and we're going to hit track motion, and we are going to just click and drag and move this icon to a different position. Do it with number 2, and because we want it to kind of stagger back and forth across the screen, we're going to go to the other side of the screen, and then we're going to do that with the rest of the 8 remaining icons. Okay, so now we have them all repositioned, but now they are all coming in at the same time, and we want to stagger that. And the easiest way to stagger that is to just move them. You can actually set up markers at precise times, either through scripting programs or manually, but it really, you know, for this purpose, it really doesn't need to be precise. So all we need to do is just basically move all of them together. We're going to click on the front clip of track 2, and then shift click on the back clip of track 10, and then move them so that we can see what the timing is. It comes in, and then those others come in. That might be a little bit too slow for us, so let's do the shift click again so that we can move them all until we get this timing down. And okay, that seems to be a good amount of space between. So now we're just going to go between each of the tracks and just simulate. If it's off by a frame or two, that's fine. And like I said, if you want to do it precisely, you can do it with markers. But we're just going to do this manually by eye. And now let's see what we have here. We have staggered all over the screen. And you can see something like this coming in with a voiceover talking about, you know, when you at first blush, you know, all doctors kind of look the same. All right, so now we have all of that. And now, as you can see, because we move things around, we do have a staggered end. If you wanted to change that, it's very easy to do. You could either do it manually, or you can do our shift click to select everything, and you could group them, grab the one that's out farthest and bring it in, and then once you've brought all of them in, you can actually change their length uniformly. Okay. So now the last thing that we need to do, so that this is not white in the background, it's actually transparent. We're going to just delete our white track, and now we have our 10 doctors with a transparent background, and we're going to change that transparent background to another background that we're going to pull from Motion Graphic stock. Okay, so now we're going to grab a background for our animation, and this site has the categories and different filters that you can do, as well as search, but we're going to do motion backgrounds because I like motion backgrounds. And here we have animated backgrounds, looping backgrounds, textured backgrounds. I want a looping background because I prefer looping backgrounds. You can also, if you don't have a looping background, you can find the end of it and then just do a quick crossfade between the end of one and the beginning of the other. So we'll see what he's got for looping backgrounds. And that's a little bit busy. I mean, I really like these backgrounds, but for what we're doing, we don't need the snow. Let's take a look at just something that's pretty simple, kind of like that. So we're going to download this, and then we'll jump back into a new project file in Vegas. Okay, so now that we've chosen our background, we are going to bring it in to a new work file, project file in Vegas. And so here's our background. And we are going to right click and we're going to insert another video track, and we're going to bring in the veg file, the work file that we just did with our doctors, and we're going to bring it in as a nested project. And there's going to be a little bit of lag in playback sometimes, just because Vegas is sort of rendering another file into this. But the nice thing about doing something this way is that you can build these animations, and in your final assembly, they're only taking up one track versus 10 that they would be taking up if you built them in the actual final timeline that you're going to be creating. So as you can see here, the background is very similar in color to our doctor's coats. So I want to mix that up a little bit. And again, the way to do that is to click on the plugin chooser, click the HSL adjust, and then play around with different colors. And something like a yellow is nice. We can maybe bring the saturation down a little bit. If we wanted to, we could go all the way with black and white. Something like that. Another thing that I like to do sometimes is actually blend my backgrounds, and in this case I'm going to bring in my trusty solid white background underneath the yellow, and then bring the opacity down of the yellow to just diminish it a little bit. So you still have that texture, but you don't have, it's not overpowering the actual graphics. And I think actually I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring the saturation down and make this black and white, or it's actually grayscale. It's not really black and white. So now we've got a little bit of texture in the animation, but it's muted enough that our doctors are standing out just fine. Okay, so what we have now is, and so something that you would normally see in something in an After Effects or something like that, we've actually been able to do pretty easily in Sony Vegas.